So thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this amazing moment. I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about what I call the joy of work. And I know joy and work are rarely seen in the same sentence together, but for me, I do think it's important that we sort of rethink about this thing called work. But before I begin, I want to introduce you to my beautiful daughter, Tuesday. This is one of my favorite pictures of her because she has a taco, so I call it Taco Tuesday. But I have to tell you, that's also the response that I want, because every time someone sees this adorable picture of Tuesday, their immediate response is, "Ah," and that lets me know I gotcha. Because I've learned that when you show people a picture of a puppy, particularly as cute as Tuesday, they'll accept anything you have to say, so you're mine for the next few minutes or so I appreciate that. Also, I'll say, because we are talking about work, that if it gets difficult sometimes, you may have to remember the puppy, and that'll help you get to a good place again. So that's Tuesday, so glad that you all have had a chance to meet her. So when we're talking about this thing called work, the fact is that so many people have this type of experience. I'm not saying you all have this experience, particularly if you're sitting next to your boss. I'm not saying that's your experience, but generally speaking, people tend to have this type of experience because work can be really challenging and really hard. I mean, that's why it's called work, right? Because it is kind of hard, and it can be very difficult and challenging. You know, the fact is, though, it's not just that work itself is challenging, it's actually our approach to work that makes the difference for us. So I'm an accountant by background, so I'm always looking at the data and trying to dig into other things. And I found this study, actually, a gentleman named Aaron Hertz wrote a book about the purpose economy. And in that book, he featured a study that was done at the University of Michigan. And what they did, they went to a hospital and looked across all the different job categories and found that regardless of the job, so whether a person was a doctor or a nurse or an orderly, regardless of the job, you could categorize their experiences in these three buckets. So regardless of the role. So a third of the people felt it was just a job. Give me my check, I'm done, I'm out of here, just pay me, I'm good. A third of the people thought about it as a career, meaning that they wanted that experience, they wanted to advance and have that career laddering type of experience. And a third of the people saw it as a calling in their purpose. And an example of that could be, because I think that we think roles automatically connect to certain experiences. So in this hospital example, people would assume that if you're a doctor, it must be your calling. Not so much the case. Those roles fall in the same categories as well. An example, though, there's an orderly that they talked to that absolutely saw their work as a calling, and so what they would do, they would go into the long-term care unit and change the picture so that those patients would get a different experience. So what the study showed is it's not the role itself that creates the experience, it's actually who you are as you show up in the role and then what that experience could be. And so for me, part of it's a choice, right? But part of it are the circumstances that create the experiences for us. So part of what I believe is actually encapsulated by a quote by Maya Angelou. And she says, "A solitary fantasy can totally transform a million realities." What I love about that is that it isn't a fantasy. She doesn't give us permission about whose fantasy it could be. So whether you're an owner or a founder or a dishwasher, it doesn't matter. It means that a solitary fantasy, any of us, can absolutely have an impact on millions of people if we think about what we can do with our dreams and our fantasies. And quite honestly, that's my case. I know this to be true because I'm just a random individual with my own interests and passions and dreams. In fact, as an accountant, I chose, Donnie mentioned in my background that about 10 years ago now, I left public accounting as a partner in the firm at the time to go lead the YWCA of Metropolitan Chicago. And I often tease because we got so much coverage about this transition that I thought that, they must not expect accountants to be able to run anything because we just kept getting featured all the time about it. But in the approach that we took, I really leaned into my business background so that we could really think about, for me, it was important that this business, as the YWCA with its mission, that it had to do well and create great impact. So I leaned into the whole thing really with a business lens, making sure that we could do the business of the Y. And so when you think about that, it's not just because I wanted to do great business that I wanted to treat the YWCA at the time the way I treated it. So it has to go actually a little further back for me. So it started when I think about what really led me to lean into the work the way I did was because from a background perspective, that's me. I'm the cute little one with the circles, my cousins, my sister's in the middle crying, still crying over something to this day. But you know, we're in the Robert Taylor Homes in Chicago. So for those of you not in the Chicago area, it's a project in Chicago, and we're having a birthday party. We're still not sure whose party it was because, you know, upon acquisition of my aunt and my mom, we're like, whose party was it? They didn't know. It was the 70s. They didn't know. But what we do know is that that cake says congratulations. So that told us a couple things. One, I'm upset because I think those big ones should have been able to read what that said in the back. You know, the little ones, you know, I know they tried to pull a fast one on us and get us a cake that said congratulations, that's fine. But I was like, you know, those bigger ones, they should have been able to read that. But having said that, what that showed us, you know, the couple things I took away from that is that, yes, we were having our birthday party in the project, but yet my mom and my aunt were resourceful enough to get us a cake regardless of what it said, so that we could have just a positive experience. And so as I think about that, particularly when I was doing the work at the YWCA, there were so many mothers and so many children and families that we were impacting that, to me, you all in the hospitality industry already know this, that you just do the best that you can. But my perspective was that I absolutely had to do the best that I could for those families because I know that my mom and my aunt were doing the best that they could for us. But so when I think about the work that we did and just the dreams that I had as a child, I'll also share with you that one of the things that I think led me to the YWCA and to do the work there was that I had a profound love for humanity. And so when people would ask me all the time about why would you switch sectors, right? Why would you go from a corporate job and doing whatever you were doing in corporate and presumably doing that to some degree successfully, and why would I then go into the nonprofit space where the work is absolutely different and under-resourced and just more gritty to a certain degree? And I would, you know, people would make up a narrative that say, oh, you want to go do good in the world. I was like, I do good everywhere I go. Doesn't have to be a sector. However, but what I found that was sort of proof, because I couldn't answer the question because I didn't know. I was like, because I want to do this work, but I didn't know where it came from. Well, I did some digging, and I found a letter that I wrote to my dear friend, Santa Claus. And that letter gave me a lot of insights into perhaps the reason I actually chose to be in the sector. So I'll share the letter with you. I have to scan because it's so old and yellowy that I think if I touch it, it'd totally disintegrate right now. But the letter says, Dear Santa, how are you? You'll never believe what I want for Xmas. Just 3 simple things. 1, to make everyone alive today be okay. 2, to give me a little something like a picture of you to show people you are real. If you have a picture with you now, please give me one if possible. 3, this is a big one. What I want is for you to ask my parents if I could be their accountant for 1 month. It won't cost them a thing, well, maybe a few $100s, ha-ha. I just know I could do it. They can trust me. I just know I can do it. Please ask them for me. If they say no, please ask them to give me an explanation why or why not. I could start January 1st, 1985. Please have them see me for more info. Thanks, Santa. Love your friend. Love your friend, Dorri McGhee. P.S. I left you a sucker. Right back, please. So a couple things in that letter. One, it really did provide me just profound insight into how I thought about the world. That as an 11-year-old child, you know, thank goodness that Santa gave that letter back to my parents. I would have not known about this experience. But as an 11-year-old child, that I had a perspective that I absolutely wanted everyone alive today to be okay, and I absolutely wanted to do accounting. Didn't know my parents didn't have anything for me to be an accountant for, but that's fine. But in my heart, that's what I wanted to do. And I have to say that Santa delivered. So baby Dorri is a partner in an accounting firm with the pearl necklace that gives that away. And then starting my journey to make everyone alive today be okay, about 10 years ago at the YWCA, I call it my warrior princess outfit. And now at the YMCA, I get to absolutely make sure that I continue to work to see that everyone alive today is okay. So Santa absolutely delivered, but more importantly, what it taught me was that I need to lean into my dreams about what I believe is possible and not necessarily be limited by what others think I should be doing with my background or skills. In fact, one of the things I'm very proud of that I did when I was at the YWCA, the team and I, we were able to be the first nonprofit to list an exchange-traded fund on the New York Stock Exchange. And those two worlds people would think would never go together, but in my mind, y'all heard my letter to Santa, they do go together, right? The possibilities that we could access the capital markets and use that access to absolutely do good in the world, to me, those are not mutually exclusive. So what does that say for me? It just really continues to remind me that we get to choose. We get to choose how we combine our skills, our passions, our desires, and how we create the work experiences that we have because of that. One of my favorite quotes is by Khalil Gibran. And what he says is, work is love made visible. And I feel that so strongly every single day because the way I look at it, work is just another way we organize the humans. So the spaces that we create for the humans, whether we call them work, whether we call them a library, wherever you call them, it's just another space where we bring people together. And in that bringing those people together, we have an opportunity to create significant impact. So whatever we call it, it doesn't matter to me. But what it means is that each of us has an opportunity in expressing who we are to think about the impact that we could have at this thing called work. So one of the things that I've set out to do is really reimagine what work means. First of all, I don't like the word work because I'm like, what is the opposite of work? Is it play? I don't know. I could play at work too. I have no idea. So I don't know what the opposite of work is. But to me, I think about work as a way we make our contribution by using our own creative expression through collaborating with others and forming a community and making those individual connections. So I call it sort of the 5 C's of work. And I do this because I really want us to rethink this space called work. We have such an opportunity to really impact lives, millions of lives, just by how we show up in a place that, yes, of course, we get compensated there, but there we have what I would consider just a great platform for impact. But I only believe that impact happens when each of us shows up in our own authenticity. I gave my example of me, having these dreams as a young child to be in a space where I can make the world a better place and apply math, right? And so what that looked like for me over time is that absolutely I now, having had a background, 20 years in accounting, and now being able to spend most of my time focused on social impact work, that was how I did that. But I think about how each of us are truly change makers, and every single thing that we do can absolutely be that platform for impact. So what I want to do, we heard Donnie and Kevin say earlier that we need to take away one thing, but I want you all to commit to me that you're going to do that one thing, and that one thing starts with truly being your own unique expression of humanity. So we're gonna commit to that, so I'm gonna need you to stand up. It's after lunch, y'all can stand up. And I'm gonna have you take a pledge with me. Now, this pledge thing, we're gonna try it. So we gotta raise our right hand because apparently it's not official if you don't. So we'll raise your right hand. We'll do a little repeat after me. So today I serve the world, by being my most empowered self. I leverage my whole self, and appreciate others for doing the same. In being our whole, empowered selves, we improve the world. Thank you.